All right, here we go. I feel like things are starting to heat up a little bit.
I think so.
Drama, at least.
I had to go down a step. Sorry, you see me fall.
Let me go from 6'8" to 6'3" or 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. You got to bring him down sometimes, Kratz.
That's why I'm there. That's why I show up every once in a while.
Yeah, we miss you. Okay. I would love to get right into it if we can, because there's some news flowing through right before the show starts, some of which was covered on Fair Territory. So let's just charge the damn mound and get into the Garrett Crochet saga.
Charging the mound.
All right, here's the Jon Heyman tweet that set it off. Garrett Crochet plan with the White Sox is to pitch a normal workload as a starter until the end of the regular season. If traded, would need an extension to pitch in October. He won't move to the bullpen and will not take any break. Views starter routine as best for health. Ken on Fair Territory essentially confirmed it. He said he's hearing the same thing. Okay. And then I'll give you one more. Chuck Garfield, who covers the White Sox, obviously pre-post the whole deal. Chuck's great. Good luck, Chuck. This is what we were talking about on the show a couple days ago. Crochet has been saying since spring training his body works best on 5-day routine as a starter. There haven't been any issues moving into the bullpen. Maxing out, pitching every few days might not be best for him. And also, for the record, might not be best for anybody if you're just suddenly taking an arm and saying, okay, now throw way harder in short spurts. Okay, now go back to starting. These aren't robots. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, we were kind of talking about this beforehand. The first person that comes to mind for me is Josh Hader. I mean, he was a guy, same kind of deal. Like, listen, I want to pitch in the ninth or I'm not doing it. And you're not overusing me as well. And I think this could be the kickstart of kind of something different in baseball. Crochet is not saying he doesn't want to pitch. He's saying, I will pitch. I want an extension, though, because I've never pitched over 50 innings in my career yet. So guess what? I need a backup plan, and we all need a backup plan. And for him, I think it's the right move. What happens if he does throw over 200 innings or 200 plus, whatever he does, and all of a sudden he's like, I'm feeling something in my forearm or my arm again. And now guess what? Yeah, exactly. The kid's screwed, man. He's going to be hurt for another year and blah, blah, blah. You gotta plan for the worst, hope for the best. In this scenario, I love everything of it. It's financial security for one. And for two, this guy, he hasn't thrown that much. So, yeah, guess what? If you're going to trade for me, I want to be extended or I'm not going to go. And I think that's the right move, Scott.
I agree. I totally agree. I mean, look at what the Brewers did to CC Sabathia when they traded for him. CC didn't blow out. CC was the picture of health in his arm, and he absolutely got crushed. He was pitching every 3 days and took the Brewers to the playoffs, which was awesome. He talks about it, how awesome it was. We don't live in that day and age. We also don't live in a day and age of like football where guys are sitting out right now. They're going to start sitting out of OTAs and training camp because of contract disputes. So there's a happy medium somewhere in there. And to me, you could easily extend this guy. Give him his guaranteed money. You trade him. Give him guaranteed money for the rest of his arbitration and let him go and explore free agency, and I guarantee you this dude will come and ball out for your team.
Well, hold up.
Yeah.
What do we mean by extension? Do we mean guaranteeing arbitration years, or do we mean beyond? That's a big difference here. We didn't get clarification. I mean, it's a blanket statement right now, but what does an extension mean? Yes, if I'm the Dodgers and I want to acquire him and I want him pitching in October, if I just have to guarantee his pre-free agency years, I'm probably into that. If the Crochet camp's like, no, I want to do like the full-on Tyler Glasnow deal or something like that. You know, give me 150 mil plus or something. Then you're going to have teams potentially hesitant. You think, but what do you think he's actually asking for, right? Like what is the negotiating table right now? I mean, I hate to role play, Kratz. I hate it. But if the Dodgers called Crochet and really his representatives, right? If they called CAA and they were like, hey, we're trying to acquire you. I'm just using them as an example. Orioles fans, relax. I'm just trying to acquire you, but I hear that you need an extension. What does that extension look like that is going to make you comfortable with pitching in October for us this year? And also, I will add, I'm Andrew Friedman right now. I am a little concerned about you going the entire season as a starter and then going into the playoffs as a starter and all of a sudden pitching potentially 220 innings for us after never going past, 30 or something in your big league career.
Well, that last part, then I'm not your guy. And so you don't need to trade for me. But the first part, what does the extension look like? It looks like 3 years. It looks like at least 3 years. So if you want to do this, we're going to do it at what I'm pitching at, which is number one spot in the rotation type. Give me I didn't pull up what he's making this year. So
Well, it doesn't matter. You can line up Kratz. Like you can line up a comp.
But that's what I'm
Arb.
saying. Give me five, because he's going to be a Cy Young candidate this year. He's going to get votes. So you're going to get a $5 to $7 million range. So give me 5 to 7 plus for this next year, and I'll take 25 a year for the next 2 years, and you'll see me pitching for you in the World Series.
See, I disagree. I think his agency wants years beyond controlled years, beyond the arbitration.
I'm just going with a guy I played with. He's still playing, so I'm not going to say his name, and he might not want it out there. But before he got traded from the team he went to and the team we ended up playing together with, there was another team that they had agreed to an extension before the trade deadline. They agreed to that extension, and then the team he ended up getting traded to swooped in and gave the team a better number. And that extension, or not a better number, they gave the team a better return for the trade. So the team was like, screw that, we're not trading to the other team. And that other team gave him a 3-year extension. It was going to buy out the rest of his arbitration plus 2 more years. And he was good with that. He was a young guy. He wasn't quite doing what Crochet was doing, but he was doing some things.
Okay, so maybe this looks like a 5 or 6 year deal that makes all sides happy. Very difficult to accomplish.
And that we don't know. And I think that's the only determining part that we got to figure. Well, not us, but they have to figure out. Like if you're going to pick him up, are they going to want the 6 to 8 year deal? Are they going to just buy out the arbitration year? So it's tricky. He hasn't pitched past 50 innings, so this is going to be very hard. Everything comes onto the table here. Bang, boom, bang. Okay, now what do we do? I do like that. Players are doing this now. Might people are like, oh man, they're snobs. Just take what you're worth and go pitch out. No, they do it in football. They do it all the time. So people hold out.
Yeah,
they do.
I got another name for you. I know there were some other issues as well, but arm-wise, Matt Harvey in 2015 went all out, and he went past what he thought he was going to go for the Mets to get to the World Series. You can make a case that long-term, it did not work out well for his arm. Can't you use that? I mean, it's not the best direct example. You don't think so? He's coming off Tommy John surgery. He was on an innings cap, and they blew past it. It was a big controversy back then. You remember.
Okay, so it's Strasburg sat out the playoffs, and the Nats didn't get an opportunity to win the World Series. He still blew out.
I understand. It's not about the result. It's about the player going against the recommendation, right? Or going with the recommendation if you're Strasburg and saying, I'm not pitching because I've hit my limit. No?
It's way different than
he's literally saying, I'm not going to pitch in October unless you give me long-term financial security. I'm not going to have my arm fall off for you for one season, just like Josh Hader. I'm not just getting called every other day and pitching 2 or 3 innings for you on a crazy routine that no one else is doing and being the best reliever in baseball, and then you go smash me in arbitration and say I'm worth nothing.
I think the Harvey and Strasburg things are different. To me, Harvey doesn't pitch in the playoffs. That's bailing on his team. Strasburg bailed on his team. Didn't pitch. Crochet is not bailing on his current team. He has a unique leverage situation where he can do something that I think is awesome that he's able to do it, because it will only help players get more guaranteed, pitchers especially, get more guaranteed money, because teams do not care if they blow out. All they care about is you throwing the ball a billion miles an hour.
a couple fun comments. Bob in the chat put in the contract that if he hurts his arm this year, the contract's voided and no extension happens. Obviously, that's not a thing. They're called guaranteed contracts in baseball. Whether he was kidding or not, it's still fun. And then I need money in the chat. One crazy GM or GM crazy enough to do this, AJ Preller. AJ Preller loves Garrett Crochet. So, yeah, maybe this does make the Padres more of a player for someone like Crochet.
And to kind of button this up at the end of the day, what's the worst that can happen? Finishes this year with the Chicago White Sox.
Correct. That is the worst that can happen, and that is the leverage that Chicago has. He has 2 more seasons of control after this. We're going to ask about this situation to a guy who has been in this place before, former general manager and currently in a front office as well. Dayton Moore has a lot of info for us on this, on the Royals, on the Rangers suddenly making a run again. He's going to join us next on FT. Good show today.
I believe I bought a car. It might have been a Bentley Continental GT, one of my favorite cars still to this day.
Probably a house. I think that was my biggest purchase. My fiance at the time, we're trying to figure out where to live. We stayed in my hometown.
One was from my first free agency contract with the Mets. I bought this house. That was a big one.
I was already up and down in the big leagues for 3 years, but I got rid of our Honda Accord and I bought myself a Chevy Avalanche. Doesn't really sound that cool, but it was a truck I needed, and my minor league Accord wasn't fitting my family of 5, so time to upgrade.
I'm going to date myself with my first MLB purchase after my signing bonus, and that was the original iPod.
The big thing that I got in kind of celebration of that was my computer setup. I built a brand new PC. I built actually 2 PCs, bought a bunch of monitors. I kind of did it all at once and built like a creative studio and just built it out and just said like, no expense is too much for this. This is, you deserve this. And I have a lot of those things that I still in this room that I bought that day. So actually most of it's still from that day.
In a 40-yard dash, you have a 15-yard head start. Are you still beating out Ellie De La Cruz?
No, he is going to smoke me. I saw that firsthand since he just came to the Bronx, and it's impressive, man. He had a triple, I think, for his first hit in the Bronx, and he goes and hits a homer into their bullpen. The guy's electric, man. He's good for the game. Definitely going to be rooting for him and following him for his career.
How much of a head start in a 40-yard dash does he need to beat you?
To be me, probably 0. I probably need the head start. I'm getting a little older. These guys are now 22. I'm 31 now, so.
How much of a head start in a 40-yard dash would you need to beat him?
Not much. I don't think much.
Really?
No.
Here we go. We're back on FT, and we're talking to Dayton Moore, Senior Advisor of Baseball Operations for the Texas Rangers, former longtime general manager of the Kansas City Royals as well. Dayton, great to have you on. Exciting time of year. How you doing?
Great, guys. How you doing today?
Really good. Really good. A lot of action going on. I don't know if you've seen the news that we're discussing, and we don't have to get into the individual player name, but have you come across any situations where a player's concerned about arm care and you have to go back and forth with that player about, either an extension or just how to come up with a plan that makes sense? And then, throw in the caveat that you might trade that player.
Yeah, it's so complex. And, I always felt that the most important thing is to listen to the player, communicate with the player, have that dialogue where you're giving them an opportunity to weigh in. You're certainly going to have in-depth discussions with the medical team and get their opinion as well, their expert opinion, and of course the manager and the pitching coach. And I think between the player, the pitching coach, the manager, the medical people, I think it's certainly an opportunity to make sure that the communication is strong and ultimately you make the best decision, for the player. And you always want to look out for the long-term interest of the player as well. That's the priority. That's the main thing. That being said, as a general manager, you got to sell the ship. You got to look out for the best interest of the team as well. But I think when it comes to the health of the player, that is without a doubt the most important thing to concern yourself with.
How do you balance that? Because I'm going to put this caveat out there first. Dayton Moore is an incredible GM, won a World Series, has now helped the Rangers and CY do whatever a special advisor does. But all those accolades, he is an incredible man. And so when he says you have to worry about the player and what's best for the player, he's not blowing smoke. This is not somebody that blows smoke. So I got to put that caveat out there. There's plenty of people that will be like, he doesn't believe. He lives this. He believes it. But my question is, how do you make that decision then? Because you are the GM. You have to build the next contender at the team that you're at, where this guy's like, you know what? I gotta make sure I'm looking out for number one here. When that's not even your MO as a GM. You don't even look out for number one. You're looking out for other people, and that's the reason I have so much respect for you. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, I think there's obviously a rhythm to the major league season. And, you take certain players, you go into the season, you have projections on how many innings, how many starts. You always obviously want to look out for their workload. And, there's opportunities through the course of that season, whether you skip a start, you obviously you try to manage, their rest and get them through the season healthy, because that's the bottom line. And as you all know, I mean, there's very few starters that are going to take the mound tonight that are feeling 100%. And that's why, again, you've got to have such great communication with the necessary department heads, and of course the communication with the player as well. But you got to pay attention to what the player's experiencing, what his side session was like, what his workload's been has he had a lot of stressful innings, what's he experiencing off the field, because as you know, stress off the field creates stress and leads to sometimes health issues and focus issues on the field, which can lead to injuries as well. So I think you got to just pay attention to all aspects of it, Kratzy. And but it's obviously complex. And again, there's so many more people weighing in today than ever before. And then you can talk about how we develop pitchers in the minor leagues. When I first was the director of player development with the Atlanta Braves, our goal with all of our young pitchers was to make sure they had anywhere from 150 to 170 innings throughout the course of the minor league season. Now we're starting to monitor at 100 and 125, and there's very few minor league pitchers that ever get that opportunity to pitch 150 to 170 innings. And of course, you plug in winter ball opportunities, the Arizona Fall League opportunities to help finish pitchers off as well. And so again, it's just very complex, and we haven't figured it out yet. There's no doubt about it. I mean, when you look at all the money that we've spent in technology, all the money that we've spent in personnel, all the trainers, the physical therapies, the sports science departments, all of the different machinery we have and technology that we utilize. When a player gets hurt, it's still 4 to 6 weeks, and it takes time. The human body is very complex, as we all know, and each individual is different. But again, I think it comes back to communication with the pitcher, what they're experiencing, give them some buy-in, give them some say. about if they need some time off, if they need to skip a start, maybe they go into the outing with 60 to 70 to 75 pitches, what have you. You just have to monitor it the best you can, because the number one job of a pitching coach, I've always believed, is to keep the pitcher healthy. That's the number one job. Regulate their effort between outings and make sure that they go to the post. And the only way they're going to go to the post is if they're healthy.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I want to talk a little bit about the trade deadline. It's looming on Tuesday. There hasn't been that many trades. For one, have you seen it ever like this? And, why hasn't there been that much action going on yet? Are people stalling? They want to wait, maybe they'll get something better. Like what can you think about, that whole situation?
Todd, every year is different, as you know. I think that, when teams look at, when general managers look at their team, I think there's three things that you got to evaluate. You got to evaluate, the type of year that your players are having, whether they're having career type years and, the season's just going well for them. Secondly, you've got to evaluate the hunger of your team. And do they have a strong desire to get back to the World Series, win a World Series, what have you? And then you got to look at the general health of your team. And if you feel good about all those three areas, I think it's important that you do everything you can to supplement the roster so you can match up against the very best teams, in baseball. And you do what you can to add to your team and get talent to blend in with your current group. And, some organizations, they may feel like, maybe they're not healthy. Maybe they don't feel like they have a chance to win. But, I always felt that was a flawed way to look at it, because I believe in major league players. I believe in teams. And if you supplement them with the right talent, you never know what can happen. And you can never, ever put limitations on a major league player and a major league team, because they have the ability to exceed expectations. But it's hard to set in another GM's chair and to know exactly what they're dealing with, what the expectations of the ownership is, what the expectation of their payroll is, and then certainly the health of their minor leagues, and if they have an appetite to move, prospects. And I never liked to trade major league players. I hated that part of it, and I never liked to trade our minor league prospects as well. But it's a part of what you have to do, and because you can only play 9, and it's a 26-man roster. So you want to make sure you put the best team you can on the field each and every night. And I think there's a lot of teams that have an opportunity to win this year.
All right, Dave, before I get to my question, can you try to center yourself up so you're centered in this screen there? Other way. There we go. Oh, nope. Nope. A little more to your right. There you go.
Okay.
This is awesome, by the way. I love this. Former Royals player helping his GM.
Hey, Kratz knows technology is not my deal.
I know it's not your deal. That's right. Perfect. Right there. There you go. You don't even have to look at yourself in the camera. I see you checking out. You're handsome. You got great, you got the flow going. It is perfect. So now we'll get to the question. What's the temperature of the Rangers right now? You're over there, I think, a special advisor. I see CY sitting in his chair. He's 6'10", so he's really tall. You're behind him, massaging his back, maybe getting in his neck a little bit. Like, what is the temperature in that room right now based on where the division is, where the team is, the health, and all the things that you just mentioned?
Well, we feel good about our team. We really do. I mean, we haven't, we've had our ups and downs this year like everybody has. CY is a tremendous competitor. He's going to do everything that he can to help this team get better. Obviously, Bruce Bochy's a 4-time world champion, and his expectations are to win again and get back to the World Series, and so we're just focused right now on figuring out how we can get better, evaluate the landscape, what teams are willing to do, what teams aren't willing to do, but we'll try to do what we can to help this group. And we've won 5 in a row. We feel good coming out of the break. We were getting ready to start up here in a little bit, and hopefully we can win today, and then just continue to push to win this division. But we feel good about our team, and like I said, CY is not going to quit. I mean, he's going to push things all the way to the end, and he understands you've got a small window of opportunity to win, and we feel like we can do that.
Dayton, obviously the AL West record-wise right now has been down a little bit, and that's been helpful, of course, for your ball club because it's just an ongoing theme in baseball. You win a World Series, very difficult not only to replicate that, we haven't seen that in a long time, but even just the follow-up season after playing, a month of just crazy all-out battle baseball. So my question to you is, was there ever a time period in the last few weeks where there was a high level of concern with the front office, kind of before the Mariners went down this slumpy path, that maybe the Rangers would have to do a little bit of dealing from this team and not be able to make the playoffs? That was one. And then two is, what do you think's been the biggest detriment to the team so far this season that's held them back from being what they can be?
Well, I think that you're always trying to manage on both fronts. You have a group of people in your front office that are planning best case scenario and some that are planning worst case scenario. And because, as you know, the major leagues is so unpredictable, it changes minute to minute, certainly day to day, and so you never want to get caught off guard. And even last year, we got in on the last day, the second to last day, we won game 161 in Seattle to put us in the wild card. And so you're always managing best case and worst case scenario. But we felt, all along that this team is certainly can get on a roll. We've obviously, Garcia hasn't had the type of year and the type of season he did last year. That being said, he's a threat in the middle of the lineup. And as CY and I were talking this morning, I mean, he's getting closer, and we feel like that, he's got a chance to carry up at some point in time in the next couple months. Hopefully we get Josh Young back in the next week or so. The pitching's been tremendous. The bullpen has been much better than it was last year. The starting pitching has been consistent. We're hoping to get, a few guys back here in the next couple weeks to even fortify the pitching staff a little bit more. Seager and Simeon are two guys that we think are amongst the very best in the league and in the history of the league, and they're capable of carrying a team. And so we feel good. Nate Lowe's gotten hot. He's been really, really consistent for us, the last few weeks. And so there's a lot of strong predictors for this team going forward. And, what can I say about Langford? And, to watch, this young player emerge and the at-bats that he's had really from day one. And now he's starting to get consistent results, and he's played a tremendous left field. It reminds me a lot of Alex Gordon when he first broke in to left field, and the transition that he made, the work ethic of him, of Wyatt, is tremendous. And I think he's got a chance to win a Gold Glove out there at some point in time. And so, again, there's just a lot of strong predictors for our team right now, and they're hungry. And they know they haven't played their best baseball, but the fact of the matter is, they believe, and we believe, our better days are ahead, and we're going to finish strong.
Where does CY, staying on the Rangers for a tick longer, where does CY fall short because he's an ex-player? I said last year the moves, and we talked about it all the time. As an ex-big league player, being in a situation, he and I talked about missing the playoffs by a game. You're tending to push too much. Where does he fall short as a player now as a GM? As an ex-player now as a GM?
That's a great question. I've never even asked myself that about CY, and it's my job to kind of be his bench coach. But I think that the thing with CY is he's just going to keep getting better and better. I mean, so just the fact that, he broke in as a player, the commissioner's office, and right into the major league front office. And so he'll admit that he doesn't have some of the foundational things of being an area scout or a coach or spending time in the minor leagues or in draft rooms and what have you. But he's a fast learner, and he is so hungry to get better. And I think he reminds me so much of John Sherholtz when I worked with John. I mean, he's extremely competitive, as we all know. He's very smart. He includes people. He has an appetite and a hunger to hire the best people that he possibly can, and he wants to be great. And he's not satisfied with just winning one world championship in Texas. And what a great what a great thing it was to bring the first ever world championship to the Texas Rangers, and for him to be the general manager of that team. And I just think it's an incredible mark in the history of the franchise it's forever celebrated. And but he wants to do more. And I'm just very, very happy and thankful, Kratzy, to be a part of his journey.
All right, last one here. Looking at the Royals from afar, I know you're still there. I know you're not with the organization after being fired, but I know that we reconnected in the 10-year anniversary. So you're still around and you still love those guys, Piccolo and everybody in that front office. Do you sit there and have a little like, man, they got all this financial flexibility. When I was there, I would have loved to have some financial flexibility.
No, I'm just so happy that they're doing well. When we won in 15 and we made a decision that we were going to ride it out in 16 and 17, we knew we were going to be a part of a major rebuild. And Mr. Glass, the owner at the time, was more than willing to give us the time and the opportunity to do it again. And I'm just so thankful that many of the players that we drafted and signed during that rebuild are up there making their mark. And watching Bobby Witt Jr. play is just incredible. I mean, there's very few players I've ever seen in my lifetime in the game that can help you win a game in so many ways. I mean, he is truly a five-tool player with great skill and a great mind to play. And he has the ability for a baseball. And you guys know that is almost an impossible feat. And he can do it, and he can do it almost on a weekly or monthly basis. I mean, he can just beat you in so many ways. And so to watch him play has been special. Of course, see Salvi up there leading and doing what he does. But again, just very happy that many of the players that Lonnie Goldberg and our development staff drafted and signed are up there doing well, because it's that's the great part of this game. The humbling part is the fact that you get to be a part of a baseball player's journey, whether they make it to high A, double A, triple A. Of course, you want them all to make it to the major leagues, but when they make it to the major leagues and they're on the cusp of having great careers, I mean, it is really, really special. And I'm very thankful that those guys are up there doing well, and the city appreciates it. And again, most of those guys in that front office either coached at some point in time or hired them with the Braves, and we brought them over to Kansas City. And I'm glad they're getting an opportunity to win, because I think if I could look into a crystal ball and have a dream for everybody, I wish every player could be in the playoffs and win a World Series, and every front office person, every scout, every coach, every manager, every owner, it could experience what it's like to win a World Series, and how humbling that is, and how much effort it takes, and how much success that it takes for so many individuals at every level to do their part to win. There's nothing that's more fulfilling, and I truly wish that everybody a part of this game could experience that.
All right, last one. I said last one before. This is truly the last one. You were still the GM of the Royals last year, and we heard reports that possibly Salvador Perez was going to get traded. What did that lead up look like? And what kind of conversations did you have with Salvi in those moments? Obviously, it never happened. And what could it have looked like if it did happen? Do you just not talk to the player, or do you talk to him ahead of time, especially when he's a franchise guy like that?
Well, Kratzy, when I was there in Kansas City, we never talked about trading Salvi. We had obviously signed him to 3 long-term contracts, when I was the GM. And I know that, he had a no trade, limited no trade. Well, he was a 10-5 guy actually, so he had a full no trade. And I know that when I was with Texas last year, and they had talked about moving him and trying to, I can't speak for JJ. I don't know why or what have you, but there was talk that they were interested in moving him at the time. But I don't know any of the details of that because obviously I was with Texas at the time and not Kansas City. But when you do have a player that is a 10-5 guy or has a no trade, you communicate with them, and you always want to know what they're feeling, what they feel about the team, their own career, how you can come alongside of them and assist them and putting them in a good spot so they can be successful. But I never felt it made any sense to go down the trail with another team or another general manager about possibly moving a player trade. I'd always want to talk to and get a feel for if they were willing to waive their no trade before you entered discussions.
Dayton, this was awesome insight at the perfect time. Really appreciate you coming on and explaining a lot of this. Our fans ask about it all the time, and you were on the request list. So thank you for swinging by. We really appreciate it. And good luck to your Rangers. See if you guys can do it again, back to back. It's been a minute. We'd love to see it.
Yeah, it would be great. All right, guys. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. That's Dayton Moore joining us, part of the Rangers front office and former Royals GM. We'll be right back. FT fam, it's that time. Ooh, I like that graphic. That looks nice. You see that?
Oh, yeah, very nice.
Yeah, right there. That's cool. That changes. That's a little TV. With our friends from AG1, a foundational nutrition supplement that delivers daily nutrients and gut health support. It's backed by multiple research studies, so you can trust what you're putting in your body. Kratz is on the road. I didn't even know that you were on the road, but you're on the road. And he's got his little AG1 travel packet because multivitamins are annoying, and there's so many of them. And why do that when you can do what Kratz is doing? Pour the packet into some liquid. Water would be preferred. Mix it around. Drink it. Have more energy. Is that the best way to explain it?
It's that easy. Have more clarity. Have more energy. You just sit here. I got my shaker. I just haven't put them together yet. Had a big morning. It's okay. I'm about to get in the car again. Drive a little bit more. Boom. First thing I'll do, AG1, little green drink for my drive.
That green drink.
I like how Kratzy brings his jerseys along with him so he can hang it anywhere
he brings those in the car.
That's nice.
Yeah, he needs AG1 and at least one jersey. That's his checklist. He looks
Smart
right
move.
on the door, right before he leaves on that garage door.
Just so everybody remembers.
Does the check mark.
I
Got a
love that.
jersey, got my pink bat, got my AG1.
And he leaves it at every hotel room, too, so somebody have a souvenir the next people that come in.
He has enough. Yeah.
I have a lot of jerseys. They're mostly jerseys that I leave in the hotel room, but I have a lot of jerseys.
Well, 97% of people in a research study felt more energy after drinking AG1 for 30 days. So if you want to get after it and support whole body health, then you can go to drinkag1.com/foul to get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/foul. That's drinkag1.com/foul. Be right back with better than box scores. Benches cleared in Colorado.
Oh.
All right, better than box scores, we should focus on Boston and Colorado. First off, the Rockies smacked the Red Sox.
Whew. I didn't know there were football games going on yesterday.
Put up a little 20 spots. Someone missed an extra point at some point, but that's all right. So I'll give you the play-by-play from Alex Spear, Red Sox writer, who's been on this show before. Reese, McGuire, and Rockies pitcher Cal Quantrill started jawing as McGuire flew out to end the inning. Benches emptied. Jarren Duran got heated, had to be pushed back to the dugout by coaches. McGuire and Rockies catcher Jacob Stallings talked after the exchange. Story served as peacemaker. There you go. And we're looking at some video right now. Also, if you would like to see a very clearly stated lip reading situation, you can find it online. There's a whole backstory. I don't know if you guys saw that, but with McGuire and Quantrill. Quantrill was saying
is that what he
something to
really said,
McGuire.
though? I don't know. It seemed
You know what
right.
I'm talking about?
Yeah, it seemed right.
Yeah. Basically, just want him. You want him to go handle things in the park.
Hey, listen, when you get excited, things just pop out of your mouth. So it might not be wrong, but Cal he was animated, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, after he got him popped out, like he gave the double fist, like exciting, like I don't know. I mean, people always talk, oh, let them, let the kids play, which is fine. But you're gonna bark like that and stare me down. I mean, do that, but don't look at me, bro. Like, hey, whoa, what's going on, man? Everything okay? Like, and then to blurt out some names or whatever he was saying, some nasty words. Like, let's talk about this a little bit. Yeah, if I'm Reese McGuire, I would have did the same thing, but something just clicked in his head to go crazy. Yeah, listen, I'm all for pitchers doing all that stuff. Yeah, let's go, boom, boom. But don't stare at him and talk crap. I don't know. Maybe there's a backstory to this one.
There is a backstory, and you can Google it pretty easily. But Kratz, was that a low blow to go after a player's previous incident?
It felt maybe a little predetermined. I mean, the score was 8-2, and you got a big out to end the inning by getting Reese McGuire to pop up. Like, it felt kind of predetermined. It felt kind of, I don't know, like it almost felt like his feelings were hurt, like Cal's feelings were hurt. To bring that up, like to be like, why would you bring that up? Why would you bring that up in that situation? Like, we're in the middle of a game, like we're locked in here. Like something I did at my time, maybe not the best choice, and he brings that up. I was like, man, I don't know why he did it.
Yeah, and some of it honestly is a little bit rated R for TV, but that's why sometimes during breaks on YouTube we can talk it out. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, we'll talk about it for a couple minutes with the little YouTube chat, but for everyone watching on TV right now, we're gonna swing right back and we are going to get into the nitty-gritty of payroll with trades with our next guest, Jon Becker, coming up. Okay, so again, you can Google this, but Reese McGuire in 2020 was arrested for doing some things with himself in a car in front of a store in Florida in 2020.
That's why he said that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So,
I was trying to protect the kids for a couple minutes on the show, but now that
fine.
we're just on YouTube for a couple minutes, we can share.
This is exclusive bonus content for you YouTube subscribers.
Wow.
Like,
I will say,
what he said.
Remember? Yeah.
No, what he said was definitely Reese has to sit there and be like, "What did you said that? Okay, well, I mean, yeah.
Well, I can
say
say
if he likes,
kind of parts of it. Go blank off in the effing parking lot, you dumb F.
Dumbeth. You're dumbeth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So see, to me, here's the next layer. I think it was predetermined from Cal, but was there a prior situation? You never know. And sometimes people are like, oh, let me see if there was ever any back and forth with the teams or with them, Jon, at another time. Or maybe they know each other. There's so many different layers that could be part of the story here. But to me, generally, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, a player doesn't just say, hey, I'm going to pick out this one part of this dude's prior situation and call him out unless there was some other beef to this. Maybe it's a friend of a friend knows him and something happened. Like there was something there that we'll probably never know until they retire and come in FT to talk about it.
Just why?
That stuff is like chirping. Like people be chirping that stuff from the dugout. Like I remember after it happened when Reese did it. Like, you know, you play against them and guys are like, "Oh, give him a hand." You know, like, "Oh man, he's really getting up for this game." Like you chirp stuff. Like
that was
chirp
you,
stuff.
Erik. That was you. Just admit it. It's okay.
It's sophomoric stuff, but in the middle of a game when you're starting and your team is winning by 6 runs and you get him to fly out weakly to center, you're sitting there like, what are we doing? Why did he just say that? Like it was totally out of the blue.
Out of the blue, and that's where I thought the same thing. Just out of left field.
The
out of left field. So there's something else
I'm gonna go one more pun. It was a low blow.
Yeah.
Dodger. I use that.
Hey.
I use that during the regular show. Dodger Dog in the chat. Are we talking about twisters again? I can't. If you want, if
Eric Davis used to tell me when I was a little too high or a little too low, low the dosage a little bit.
Yep, we need that.
Sure.
We're going back on national television in a sec. Hey, we're back on FT. Our friend Jon Becker is joining us right now on the show for the first time. Jon works for Fangraphs, a top-of-the-order columnist, contracts crank, as he writes in his Twitter page. You can follow him at Jon Becker _ and also a Roto Baller MLB contributor. So, Jon, great to talk to you. And can you just give a little more context on what your specialty is? And that'll help to tell the story here as we dive into the trade deadline.
So I'm the guy who, when Shohei Ohtani's contract happened, did the math on the deferrals. I'm the guy who, when the Angels put 7 guys on waivers last year, tried to explain to everybody what that means. So the things that I think I'll generously say like 10 to 12 people care about, that's what I explain. And I hope the players themselves read the explanations honestly, because I remember last year Harrison Bader was like, I'm on waivers. I don't know what that means. So I'm hoping more guys know now.
All right, real quick. Bobby Bonilla, how many years does he have left? How much money is he going to make?
Oh, gosh. I think he's until, is it 2033? It feels like it's never going to end. I think it extends by every season, and it's just, it's never going to
I think it's 35.
Every year they add a year. Yeah.
I was just testing you. That's all. Sorry.
Incredible. No, I love that. All right. So, Jon, I'm going to start big picture with the trade deadline looming. I feel like one of the top misconceptions is payroll. You know, many fans will give us trade proposals, and sometimes they look really good on paper just with the names. But the biggest factor is that these general managers need to then go to their ownership groups and say, hey, can we suddenly take on pitcher X who's making $18 million this year, like Jameson Taillon, and now I need you to add $7 million to the budget that you gave me for the season. So can you give us your description on how that works, and if there's anything we should be thinking about for this particular trade deadline, either with names or teams, that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, I think teams are going to have a lot of in-season flexibility. I think you see a lot of articles about owners, whether it's, smaller markets, Bob Nutting, owner of the Pirates, seeming to say, at least publicly, that they'll have room to add payroll for 2024. I think a lot of those conversations are easier to have, but when it's a guy like Jameson Taillon who has 2 more years left, well, then you're getting into, okay, well, what money do we have on the books for 2025? What money do we have on the books for, even as far as 2028, 2029, depending on some of these contracts? And, what does our contention window look like? It's a lot easier to sell, okay, we can get this guy who's making a lot of money, but as a free agent after the season, versus, oh, well, we have to pay Taillon for 2 more years. And those are much tougher conversations to have between 2 teams as they try to hammer out, okay, what's a fair price to pay for this guy? Because you have to factor in how much money he's making. I mean, that's the name of the game, is what can you maximize for the money that you're paying guys?
How about I listened to John Middleton talk, and I brought it up on the show. He said, financially, I'll spend whatever I want to spend. But how much have you looked into the tiers and the penalties for international signing bonus, which he brought up, draft pick stuff, which he brought up, and what teams are in position to add without going over those?
Yeah, so it seems to me like, just based on prior history, teams don't care a ton about the monetary implication of the tax of, okay, if I'm over by this much money, then I need to pay a 10% tax. I don't think that's that big of a deterrent, but I do think, like you said, the big deterrent is, oh, we might have our top draft pick move down 10 spots. We might not be able to have as much international signing bonus money. Things like that are a big deterrent. So when you look at a team like the Phillies, who is pretty, and I say permanently in air quotes, but they're above the luxury tax now. They're already above the luxury tax for next year, which is very unusual for a team to basically lock themselves into that status. And yeah, the teams do have to look at, okay, what are the penalties that I'm going to incur? And are we comfortable enough in our player development to know, oh, we might be picking a little bit lower, or if this guy walks after we issue a qualifying offer, then our pick is between the third and fourth round instead of after, I believe it's after the first round. So there are a few teams that do have to consider that for sure. Looking at 2024 payrolls and knowing that the tax line is what it is, the Cubs are really, really close. They're probably going to sell off some guys basically for whatever they can get, I think, because they don't want to be above the tax line and not make the playoffs. I mean, that's the single worst case scenario that a team can be in. But teams on the adding side, I think teams like the Red Sox are going to have to consider that. They're at $211 million right now. And the bottom tax line, I believe, is $224 million this year. So that is something that they have to consider is, do we add payroll up to that point, or do we go well beyond that point and really lock ourselves in as a playoff team? Because you don't want to be just over that line and not make the playoffs, or maybe only be like a wild card caliber team instead of one that you think is a World Series caliber team. Because obviously, if you win the World Series, nobody's going to care where your draft picks were the following year.
All right, so what's the one number? What's the one number that fans need to look into? That they're like, because you said all of 12 people are excited to look at what you're talking about. I love this stuff because to me, where a team's going to go, you just follow the money. And so all these numbers and stuff, this is what they're – but what's the one number coming up to the trade deadline here that fans need to be like, oh, Jon said this, our team is this far away, we could make a big move here?
So I think honestly, it's the 2025 payroll that I think matters more, because if you see yourself in contention right now, I think there's a lot of ignoring you can do of where you're at in 2024. But in 2025, there are going to be guys off the books. There are going to be guys coming back from injury. There are going to be guys who inevitably, unfortunately, will get hurt prior to next season. So the luxury tax number for next season is going to be $239 million. It's actually $237 this year. And that's the number that I think teams are going to really focus on right now, especially as they look to trade for controllable players for next year. Going back to Scott's Jameson Taillon example, do we have that $18 million buffer before hitting the tax line for 2025 to justify getting a guy who can help us right now? And more importantly, will our team be good enough next year where a guy like Jameson Taillon is really important to have and not just a good pitcher on an okay team?
Let me ask you this. I know you've been hearing about the Crochet stuff going on, how if you want to trade for him, you want him to pitch, he wants an extension. The guy hasn't thrown over 50 innings in his career. If he does get traded to a contender, what kind of money you think we're talking about here on an extension for him?
Yeah, I mean, he is a really, really interesting case. He's making $800,000. He has 2 more years for free agency. He's actually in the same contract situation as Tarik Skubal, even though, it seems like Tarik Skubal has been around so much longer because effectively he has been health-wise. And I think for Crochet, there's a couple of things he'd have to consider is one, does he just want those last 2 years locked in at a rate that he thinks is ace level, which in arbitration, it's not great for starting pitchers, but he could probably get something like 2 years and 34 million, let's say. And I think that's probably a little aggressive for those 2 years. Or does he want something that is going to be long term and buy out multiple free agent years, maybe pay him like, maybe, pay him sort of like the Tyone contract? I keep going back to him, 4 years and 72 million that would buy out 2 of his free agent years. But the flip side of that is he leaving money on the table? Maybe he will just be healthy for the rest of his career, keep pitching like an ace. Does he miss out on getting, a Aaron Nola type contract? So that's something that he has to weigh too. And what he also has to weigh is the trade deadline is in 5 days. It is really, really, really hard to make an extension happen at the trade deadline. We see it in the offseason with guys like Tyler Glasnow when your time is much less limited to acquire a guy and work through those extension talks. But for Crochet, I mean, I think he might just need to have a number and say, okay, if you hit it, I'll sign this extension and I'll pitch in the playoffs. And if you don't, I won't. And the team on the other end either has to say, okay, well, we'll trade for you anyway and you won't pitch in the playoffs, or okay, we'll meet your price, because there's just not a lot of time for back and forth.
I like that. Can you explain, John, the situation that went down last year with Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer? Because I wonder if there will be any mini versions of that this year for teams that, are still looking to be careful with their payroll and say, we'll give up an extra prospect if we can save some money. Teams that come to mind for me right now are the Twins, who have already pretty much vocally put out there that if they're going to take anything on, it has to then, be subtracted. So to me, I'm like, okay, if they're going to take a player on, they're going to try and add another prospect, sweeten the pot, and tell that team to buy down some of the deal, right? Because they're being told by their ownership group, can't spend any more money during the season right now. And the Mariners have a little more flexibility, but they've been really tight lately. That's why they're in this mess. So, when we talk about guys like Jazz Chisholm, but especially even a Luis Robert Jr., and you're taking on significant heat like that, I wonder if they'll try and pressure the White Sox into buying some money down, even though it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, the Mets undoubtedly do not get Drew Gilbert or Luis Angel Acuna last year without eating the significant cash that they did on Verlander and Scherzer. I mean, there is immense risk in acquiring pitchers of that age who are making $43 million a year. And if the Rangers and Astros say, well, those guys are more like $20 million a year pitchers, we're just not going to give you much of anything at all unless you paid out significant cash. Now, with a guy like Robert, who is sort of in that weird space of, if he's healthy, he's probably underpaid, but will he be healthy? And, do the White Sox and Jerry Reinsdorf just say, well, we know we can get a really good package for Luis Robert without paying the other team a cent along with him. But can we get a franchise transforming package for Luis Robert if we pay down $5 million, $10 million, $15 million, whatever the cutoff point is to get a commensurate return? That would be a really interesting thing to happen for someone of the caliber of Luis Robert. But I think that the White Sox are in a spot. I mean, they have another really long losing streak that's at 10 games now, where they might just want to maximize the return that they can get. And if that includes spending money, I think that we could see something really unprecedented to say, okay, we'll pay down $10 million for Luis Robert, even though he is worth the 20 he's getting, and we want a prospect that meets that extra $10 million we're giving you.
What are these prospects worth? Because we always see how much Luis Robert's worth. He's going to make $18 million. Tyone's going to make, $18 million per year over the next 2 years plus $7 million. But what are these prospects worth? That's all what we're always hearing. I know you have to have some kind of number on the prospect.
Yeah, so Erik Longenhagen of Fangraphs and Kylie McDaniel, who's now at ESPN, but when he was with Erik at Fangraphs, they wrote a great book, Future Value, and they attempted to put a number based on the 20 to 80 scouting scale evaluation of players what that translates to dollars wise. Now, it's not an exact science, but if you look at a player who is a 70 out of 80 future value player, so that's the grade that they gave Jackson Holiday, absolute top of the scale prospect. That player, according to their calculations, is worth $112 million. So that's a ton of money, obviously. And teams do think of prospects this way, whether we like them to or not. They do attach dollar values to prospects just as they attach dollar values to players and then essentially subtract out the salary that they're making for what we call surplus value. And it does just become this big math problem of, okay, we think this prospect is worth this many dollars based on our valuation of him. We're getting Luis Robert back, who we think is viewed this many $1 million. Let's agree on a fair price. And of course, it's not perfect. We saw with what the Angels did last year. They gave up a lot for Lucas Giolito and then gave him away for nothing. It really depends on the situation that every team is in, but teams absolutely assign dollar values to every single player. And obviously it's not an exact science, and obviously it doesn't guarantee that it's going to work out fairly, but it's a lot easier for teams to do it that way than to look at the abstract of, okay, well, we think Holiday is this good, so let's just sort of weigh it in our heads against how good we think Tarek Skubal is and go from there. It's, no, we think Holiday is worth X and we think Skubal is worth Y, and X is close enough to Y, so let's do it, just to give an example.
That's a good one.
That is
Whoo-wee.
great.
Yeah, and that makes sense, though, because the whole name of the game right now in baseball is that you can have young players who become stars very early on, cost nothing, and they calculate how much they're actually worth in their minds. I mean, that is the best bargain in baseball
Yes, sir.
right now, is the way that the game's playing out. And then they kind of cut the cord on most dudes by the time they have a 3 in front of their age. So, John, this was great. Really informative, really helpful. Obviously, much more insight if you read John's work in Fangraphs. Follow him at Jon Becker _. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you, and happy trade deadline season. Hopefully some moves soon.
Happy trade deadline, guys.
Thank you. Be right back on FT to go over all the latest rumors and reports. Ken had a ton that he put out there on Fair Territory. All right, people, let's keep the conversation going for another few minutes on Alex Cora and get your thoughts. So the latest here from Buster Olney, the deal that they've been discussing is in the range of 3 years, $21.75 million would be the second highest salary on a per year basis for a manager behind Craig Counsell, who signed that 5-year, $40 million contract. So that's $8 a year for Counsell over 5. Cora's deal, if this comes to fruition, would be a little over $7 million per season. Woo. Thoughts? I didn't think that he was necessarily going to go back to the Red Sox, but if he did, I thought he would take it to free agency. To me, Kratz, this is how the Craig Counsell effect impacts the rest of the market. Alex Cora doesn't even have to go to, quote, free agency, because one guy did it, and that's generally not what teams and managers do, and he is going to get paid definitely more than he would have gotten paid a year ago if they had this conversation.
100%. Going to free agency doesn't necessarily, especially if you have a number in mind that you're like, well, I have a World Series. I won a World Series. Craig Counsell did not. So let's just make sure that my number is X close to his or Y close to his. Maybe he didn't want 5 years, whatever the numbers end up being. If you hit that, you don't have to go to free agency because there may not be a better team, and the team you're currently with might move on.
Yeah, I agree. You know, one thing I like is you have Craig Breslow, a very, very bright mind. And I've said it through experience. Alex Cora is one of the brightest baseball people that I've ever been attached to or been in a room with. And I think you're seeing it, you know, you put these two baseball minds together, and Kratzy has some great questions on Heim and you know, the outlook and what could have been on the same page, may have not been on the same page. Well, I think you're seeing two really good baseball minds come together, and you look at the AL East and what they're able to do with the roster that has been constructed thus far. I think this deal is a great deal. I think it's a fair deal, and it gives the Boston Red Sox 3 more years for Alex Cora to continue to put his brilliant brain out there to try to help this team get back to the Red Sox that we all have known them to be.
Let's spread some rumors. Best time of year to do it, right? And Todd Father knows when we're getting set up for the show on Thursdays when I'm here, I am like difficult to deal with because I'm listening to Ken just throw all the scenarios out there and answer all the fan questions. This is the time of year. So Ken threw a few things out there that I want to bounce off of you guys, okay? Because he's answering fan questions. And I feel like sometimes Ken will be like, yeah, of course Jazz Chisholm's being traded this year. And people are like, wait, what? For sure? You know, like he's hearing things much more in depth than obviously the rest of the world. So here's some others that stood out to me from Fair Territory. Of course, you can see the whole show. It's up there on YouTube on the Foul Territory YouTube channel. Catch that a little bit later on after you watch FT. Maybe you can give it a look. Follow the Foul Territory YouTube channel. And also he put out his article, What I'm Hearing. I'll get to some of those notes as well. But let's start with what he said on Fair Territory. A couple things. He thinks that it's highly likely that both Zach Eflin and Randy Arozarena get traded. Those are guys that have years of control left after this season. So, again, that's interesting to hear in my mind. I know those are two names that have come up, but thoughts on those two? And, of course, the message that it sends if you're Tampa Bay, even if they do end up maybe adding a player, those are some pretty big names to shed off this year's roster.
Yeah, I want to talk about Zach Eflin. He's a great pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's not the Zach Eflin of old, but he's a guy that is a better than average starter. You could put him anywhere you want as a starter. He's not going to care for one. He's still a tall presence. He's a big guy. He throws hard. He still has one of the nasty breaking balls too as well. He's going to help any ball club who needs a starting pitcher. And at the end of the day, there's a plethora. And I know Kratzy loves when I say plethora. There is a plethora of teams who need back-end starters. And guess what? He will fit in a bunch of them. I'm not going to guess where, but, you know, I can see. Yeah, I get St. Louis is a good one, but it's just that's one guy, like an Erik Fedde as well. Like I kind of compare him. I think Fetty's had a little better year, but, you know, to have a guy like that who's rearing back ready to go, who wants to play for a contender, why not?
And also, Eflin can go to a team that can afford him. Fedde is cheaper. Yes, he's had a better year, but I would put them in a similar category, Kratz. Like, if that's my third starter in a playoff game, don't you put those two in a somewhat similar category in terms of stuff?
Or
obviously, Eflin's done it more, but
or even the teams with abundance. I think Eflin gives you a little bit more because he's done it in the bullpen. So maybe it's a little bit more. Fetty's having a better year, but I think they're both number fours maybe to eat innings. So they may not pitch in the first round of a playoff series, but they're definitely going to be there second through the World Series. I
disagree. They're threes for me.
Okay. Well, what teams are they threes? They're threes, possible twos if both of them go to the Brewers. They are a 3 or 4 if they're on the Orioles. If they are, if they're on,
true.
It depends.
I know that. I'm just saying.
Fives
yes, I'm saying they're veterans. They can eat innings, but when you set up a playoff series, if you're like, hey, we have two good starters, and then it's Fedde or Eflin,
good.
We're good. I feel good about that.
You could take that.
Yeah, it's not like, I don't really trust this guy. Let's do bullpen game. So, but Eflin costs more, and next season he's 18 mil, I think. So he's expensive for teams to take on. So it just depends on which team it is. Randy can go to a number of spots too. And I feel like the change of scenery will excite him. It's not like he's having issues in Tampa Bay by any means. I just think that he's the kind of guy who can get jaded at times. Then it's like, oh, it's October. Okay, I'm going to be the best player on the planet for a few weeks. Like Adolis. Adolis did it last year.
Yeah.
It's there. It's so there. I don't know what they taught him when they were both in St. Louis. Sorry, Cardinals fans. Sorry, Lucy Birds. Yeah, they were both Cardinals outfielders, and you could have had them both. But even if Randy does not get, like, let's think about Randy going to the Phillies. The Phillies offense, they can always need something else. Always need a shot in the arm. Everyone goes through slumps. But you think about that looming in the playoffs, what he's done in the playoffs in his entire career. You sit there and you go, how much do they want? Yeah, we want that guy. Because only what he's done in the playoffs, he turns into another man in the playoffs.
Listen, here's a question I just thought of too. Is he going to be, say he does get traded to the Phillies, is he going to be okay not being the big guy? The guy that, that everybody's looking to doing the show. And I'm not trying to mean this in a bad way either. Like, is he going to be all right not being, top dogs when he was in Tampa Bay, Scott?
I'm going to counter that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think any team he goes to, he's the big guy for fan interaction and engagement. He is on a different level. He knows that he's not leading the Phillies clubhouse. He is far back in line. And I don't think he's that guy anyway. I don't think he's like, yo, bring it in. Like Bryce Harper, hey, this is my team. I think it's like, oh, Randy's going to make 3,000 people's day in the outfield, right? That are going to look at him. He's going to smile for a selfie. Then he's going to go put on his helmet and hit a dinger.
Is he all right batting 7th or 8th, 6th, 7th or 8th? Is that okay?
I think on the right team. Like, I think he'd thrive in L.A. too. L.A. is going after a Robert. I think they're looking deeply into a Rosarena.
And I'm not trying to diminish his character. I think he's a great guy. Some guys they don't, relate.
They don't play second fiddle.
I've got one for you.
And I'm not saying he doesn't, but I'm just saying, what happens if he bats 7th on the Phillies or the Dodgers? Is he going to be like, oh, God, or is he going to be like, oh, this is a challenge, let's go? You know what I'm saying?
I'll use
and not even just him, other players as well.
Extreme example for you. Last year, Soto with Machado. I felt like you have like franchise-changing players together, and I'm not saying those two didn't get along. It felt like there wasn't the right mix with San Diego, and that was written about. With Randy, I feel like, I don't know, he's such a unique cat that he can – I think he needs to be in a spot that's contending and preferably in a ballpark that has people showing up. I think that's the key for him.
And you got to be okay with doing that team stuff, and I'm not saying he doesn't, but – understanding batting 7th is different than batting 2, 3, 4. You know what I mean? Or leading off wherever he's hitting. It's different. Like, you're not the big man on campus anymore. Lead by example. Go out there and fall right in line to another team. It's hard for some players to do.
Yeah, he's going to cost probably $10 million plus for 2025. He's got 2026 under contract too, and then he'd be a free agent. One more stat, I have to throw it out there. 33 games in October. 11 home runs, 690 slugging percentage.
Go ahead, Kratz.
No, I couldn't agree more with you, and that's exactly why that number, that $10 million number, is exactly why I think Randy Arozarena will be a Pirate.
A
Pirate.
Oof.
That would be. See, he would take over. He would take over Pittsburgh. It would be.
I'm telling you, and he's going to hit 5th or 6th in that lineup.
Randy's why you come to the park every day.
Well, yeah, I think O'Neal Cruz got something to say about that.
But Randy is more
different,
extravagant. He's more celebratory, show me the whole deal, right?
Is Tellez all right with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Tellez wants to win. Tellez wants to win. And the fans will love it. The fans will love it. They already have their leader there in McCutchen. They already have their best player in Brian Reynolds. They already have their best pitchers. Randy Arozarena to the Pirates. Break it, Scott.
Love it.
Well, that's not my job, but I'll text Ken and see what he thinks.
Okay.
One more from Fair Territory that he threw out there. He basically said Bellinger's not going to happen. I mean, I feel the same way, just based on how complicated the contract is, the injury that he's been dealing with. I don't think that's where the Cubs will go. They'll sell other pieces, but Bellinger is way too complicated in a market that is so money obsessed. You can't take on a risk like that when he hasn't been healthy for now a good chunk of the year. So he said the Mariners need a star first baseman, but there's none available. This was in his notes column.
Joey Votto.
Joey Votto. But he's talking about Pete Alonso, Vladdy Guerrero Jr., Christian Walker. Who did you say, Vladdy?
Oh, yeah. The guy
man
is
with 5
hot
homers in his last
right
6
now.
games. I know.
Hot.
I know.
And his line drive swing doesn't go into a slump in Seattle. I think it goes into a slump when you're like, well, we got to deal with, we need a home run. He can hit the ball out of the ballpark. But his line drive swing, when he's in a slump, the balls just don't go out of the ballpark. They just hit off the wall.
That's the guy. Ken wrote that Luis Robert Jr. is a swing and miss guy, and the Mariners, they have a lineup full of that. They just got swept by the Angels, so there could be concern there. I think also they don't want to pay someone to that level right now. I mean, they didn't do it in the offseason.
They're falling.
They're falling hard.
Fast.
But this is – I got to be real with you. From someone who watches a ton of Mariners games, you'd almost think I'm a Mariners fan because they're up, and I love listening to their broadcast with Dave Sims on there, and the pitching's great. It is an incredibly frustrating team to watch for the past couple of years.
They're 3.5 out of the wild card. It is not looking good right now.
Well, and it's the division's the focus, right?
Well, I don't see that going.
You think the Astros are going to fly past them?
Let me just look back here.
They're one out. They're one out.
They're one out, and the Rangers are on their tail, too.
Rangers are 3 out, dude.
The Rangers are 3 out.
They better figure it out.
Which
right
offense do you like
now.
best out of those 3?
Rangers.
I go Houston 1. Rangers is underperformed, but it's still much better than the Mariners' offense.
Oh, Mariners are number 3 for sure.
Yeah, and they've got the best pitching, but that offense
Oakland's offense
severe makeover.
Might be better than the Rangers. Oakland's offense might be better than the Rangers' offense
this year. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
No, you're right. And anyway, Texas going to add a bat now. They're maybe going to add a bat. They're probably going to add one more reliever. Like they think they're in it again, and they should. They've got more coming back, like Dayton Moore told us early in the show. So anyway, we're going to go over many more hot trade takes. Draftneck Marc Star on YouTube is going to join us. He polled his fan base for some crazy hot trade takes, and we are going to either accept them or reject them next.
Gavin, how much of this game have you learned as a mental mind F?
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, when you get your ass kicked 7 out of 10 times and that's considered good, yeah, I mean, it's a tough sport, man, and it can be cruel. So, I've had my struggles with it. I've talked to a lot of guys that have helped me along the way, though, and hiring a mental skills coach has helped me a lot. Even this year, where I think earlier, even with the struggles, I would have really, really, really been frustrated. And not to say that I wasn't, but also at the same time, like, it's a process. So, which is cliche, but I mean, when you're coming back from missing a whole year, it's like you got to find a way to find the little wins throughout the day and try to be patient with yourself, even though, it's such a result-driven business that, it kind of forces you to press a little bit at times.
What a time that you've had the last couple of weeks. In your opinion, what do you think has made the most difference for you offensively?
What's going on? Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, I think I think I said it last night, like being more aggressive. I think early in the year, I was still kind of feeling my way through at bats and swings and trying to figure out how my knee felt. And there was just a lot of different variables, going into it. But I actually went back home over the All-Star break, and I got to hit with my uncle, who's like kind of been my hitting coach ever since I was, 5, 6 years old. And I think we kind of figured some things out in my setup with my lower half, just trying to use the ground a little bit better. Because early on I was kind of all over the place, and I didn't really have a good base. So I think, we had a couple days to just grind some stuff out where it was just me and him hitting on the field for a couple hours. And, we could talk through some things and field through some things where during the season it's kind of hard to, find time in the day to really kind of grind it out and lock things down when, you got to respect your teammates' time to hit in the cage and everything too.
Hey, it's going to be fun. Our friend Giraffe Neck Marc joining us right now on FT. We are live. Marc, great to see you, and I'm getting ready for you to take this one over. But how you doing, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys. Good to be back and ready to talk about the crazy trade deadline hopefully ahead.
Yes, exactly. I hope so. But in the meantime, while there aren't any actual trades happening, we are going to cause a stir. So want to let everyone know what you put out there, and then I'm going to let you run the ship. You're going to host this, and also for everyone to know, you can check out all of Marc's content, of course, on YouTube. He's got over 250,000 subs. Been doing this for a while. He crushes it at Giraffe Neck Marc if you want to follow him on Twitter as well. And then you're going to do what you do, put the Giraffe Neck Marc touch on some of this video, and people will be able to see it all nice and clean with the edits later on today too. But all you, man.
Yeah, so basically what we're going to do is people on Twitter, I ask them to give us some hot takes. And if you agree with the take, you're going to buy it. If you disagree with it, you're going to sell the take and just explain why. We keep it pretty simple over here. So I'm wearing a Mets jersey. I'm actually wearing the Todd Father jersey over here.
My man.
So we'll start it off with a Mets question here from Phil Sanchez. Phil says, Mets should be sellers, not buyers this deadline.
I'll go first since you're wearing my jersey. They should be buyers at the trade deadline. 100% the way they've been playing. They are super hot right now. Their pitching has been lights out as well. They need a couple bullpen pieces for sure. But they have been playing really well, and especially what they did to the Yankees. They're right in contention. They should be buyers.
I am selling this. They should be buyers. Just like Todd said, there's nothing in Steve Cohen's world where he thinks, man, maybe I should bail out on this. Even last year when he started trading all his stars, he was trading them to get better players. That's it. He wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to break everything down. I don't think this works. Only time he ever sells is when he's getting out of a business. So I'm not sure. You said either buy or sell this, right? That's how we're doing this whole shtick?
Yes, buy or sell, yeah.
Sell. I'm selling this by Mr. Sanchez.
Yeah, I agree. I'll go last on these. Obviously, they should be buying. Probably delicate buying. If you are buying, make sure it's a long-term buy because they did a lot of damage, and I mean that in terms of building up their prospect capital last year to be able to make a more sustained run. Steve Cohen's dream is to be the Dodgers, so going all in just on this season seems like it would be a little off. I wouldn't touch anything from the big league roster. Don't trade away one of the starters or anything, but maybe, one of the lower A-ball kind of guys for a reliever or two. I think that's pretty much it. So a light buy.
I like that. I hope the Mets do the same, obviously. As a pretty big Met fan over here, I'd love to see them buy. All right, this next one. This one's super hot, so we'll see what happens here. This comes from Wild West Cards. It says the Orioles will trade Jackson Holliday. I know that name's been thrown around because of Crochet and Scooble, so let's see what you guys think.
Buy. They will trade him. They have Gunnar Henderson. Everybody leans into it and says, no, you can't trade Jackson Holliday. What do you need? What do you need as the Orioles? You need to win a World Series. Gunnar Henderson will play at shortstop for the next 5 years for you. Jackson Holliday needs to be in the big leagues right now. He's proven all he needs to in the minor leagues. I know he struggled when he first got called up, but if Jackson Holliday brings you the kind of haul that pushes you to be the favorite for the World Series championship in Baltimore, you do it. You have an opportunity. You still have other guys that can play middle infield in your system, from Colin Norby to Mayo to Westberg can play middle infield. I know maybe not shortstops, but I'm buying this. It will get done.
For who, though? I mean, if you're doing that, you better make a massive, massive deal. I mean, that's got to be the Scooble trade that we don't think will actually happen, Kratz. Maybe Crochet, if they can do the whole extension situation that he wants. But otherwise, Kratz, like, who else would you be selling him for? That's my only thing. That's why I'm coming in, because I'm like, no, yeah, I'm selling that. Same. I just don't think there's anyone available on the market that would warrant a Jackson Holliday trade.
And the only reason I'm selling it, I think they want to give him another chance. I think they want to see
more than his 10 games that he played.
Yeah, exactly. They want to give him another. In my opinion, I want to see him out there again because the Orioles faithful really love this kid. Give him one more shot out there, but that also might hurt you too if he doesn't come through again. So
yeah, but
it's a mismatch.
He's 20. He's a baby. I mean, Mike Trout didn't play well
Yeah.
in his first year. Your boy
Sure.
Aaron
Judge didn't
Judge.
play well.
Yeah, Aaron
Yeah,
Judge,
yeah.
yeah.
He's going to be fine. It's just, do you think that he's going to be a good regular, or do you think he's going to be a star? That's the question mark, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I mean, it's
how high is the ceiling?
the ceiling feels super high, and it's so hard to judge someone off those 10 games. So I feel like if the Orioles, if they get like a Skubal or a Crochet, I don't think that'd be giving up on Jackson Holiday. I think that's more capitalizing on him. But you definitely, it's going to be hard to move this guy. You got to get something big for sure. All right, we'll go on to the next one here, and I guess this kind of builds into what we were just talking about a little bit, but on the other side of the trade here comes from a Yankee fan called These Yankees. He says Garrett Crochet doesn't get traded this deadline, which that feels like a super hot take to me.
It's a huge hot take. Crochet. So he says Crochet doesn't get traded.
Yes.
I'm buying this. But there's only one team that is holding me back by saying buying this. It would be your Mets, because I think Cohen would do anything. He would just go out of his way just to do it and say, hey, I could do this. That's the only team that I'm saying. So I am buying this, that he doesn't get traded. I think this is going to steer away from a lot of suitors. But there's one team that is holding me back from saying that, and that would be your Mets.
Kratz?
Yeah, I would agree. I'm saying I am buying it that he does not get traded because of all the information that we just found out. So this tweet has already aged, and we're barely a day old after the tweet was sent. But I say I'm buying it. I'm buying it. They're going to build his innings up. They originally thought they weren't going to. They're pulling him out of 2-inning starts. This offseason, he will get traded in a blockbuster type of trade for a team that hopes he can repeat what he just did, instead of a team going this year and overpaying and saying, well, he's going to continue to do what he did.
Yeah, Mark, I'll add on. I mean, because he wants a contract extension, it gets complicated. So I'm going to say it doesn't happen. Even if he's open to a number of scenarios, it's just tough to accomplish during a season. You're on a limited time frame. You have to come up with the deals. So I think he stays.
I listen. I'm cool with it, with him staying, especially if it goes Todd's way, where the Mets would be the only team that could really steal him away. I'd be more than happy if that's how it ends up going this trade deadline. You wouldn't catch a lot of Mets fans complaining there. All right, we got two more here. This one comes from Nick Tipton. He says the Cubs will sell Seiya Suzuki to a team desperate for outfielders. The Royals are the team coming to mind. So you don't have to really focus on necessarily the Royals in this, but do you think that the Cubs are going to maybe look to sell Seiya this at the deadline?
Wow. I think they will. I mean, I think that if they can, if that's a thing, this is the first time I've seen that name floated around, and I love every second of it. I think he is a guy that can go out there and give you quality at bats. Has had a tough time staying on the field, but it's been little weird nagging things. And it's a team that with him in the lineup, and I'm not saying it's his fault, it's a team that with him in the lineup hasn't done much, and they have to change something. If that means trading Tyon, if that means trading Suzuki, I would love to see it. I don't know what that puts me in the buy or sell, so I'm going to buy just so I can be on one of the sides.
You're right. That would be buy.
You're right. Yeah, that would be buy. Yeah, it's the first I'm hearing about this too, which is the best part about trade deadlines and all this. You're going to hear a bunch of different names that some we might not even talk about. Like, oh wow, look at this. Man, it's tough. I would say I'm going to buy this too as well. He could fit into a lot of different teams, and he's been going about his business, throughout his career. Like Kratz said, though, he has been injury prone, but still, when he's out there, solid outfielder, solid hitter. So I would buy this.
You guys are cray. There's no way that he is getting traded. No chance that he's getting traded.
Okay.
No way. I mean, it's a good idea from the fan. It's a good idea. To throw a name like that out there, and he would be super valuable. I mean, he's a well above average bat. He would be highly coveted by many teams. Some teams actually would just use him as DH. He's a really
That's
poor
why I like
defender.
it.
He's one of the worst defenders in the outfield in baseball. But I don't see it happening with the years of control that they have left. He can be one of the anchors of a lineup. The Cubs aren't mortgaging everything for the future. They're not about to rebuild or whatever the heck you want to call it. I mean, they're taking one step back. So I think there's other guys they can trade. It's not a great list, for the Cubbies. It's more their bullpen arms and maybe a Tyone. I think there's a better chance here. I'll give you a hot take back, Mark. I think there's a better chance Nico Horner gets traded than Seiya Suzuki, because I think there's some other prospects in the pipeline for the Cubbies that could help to fill the void there, like a Matt Shaw. But I don't see Seiya Suzuki moving.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't see Seiya moving either. I like that Nico Horner, though. There's a lot of teams that need some middle infield help, and you guys talked about the Mariners before I came on, and that's definitely a team that maybe Nico Horner could slot in there while JP Crawford's on the IL and fill in for them. Last one we've got here, going to help out Kratz here a little Phillies love from him. This one comes from a Mets fan, though, weirdly enough, and he says the Phillies get Brent Rooker. We know Brent Rooker just walked into that ballpark and absolutely made it his home the series before the All-Star break. You think they end up landing him?
Absolutely not. I don't even think they want him. I don't think there's a fit there. He hasn't played the outfield, and they're looking for outfield help. If they cram another person that can't play outfield into that lineup, finding him DHs, finding him and Schwarber and Marsh platoons and Castellanos in right field, this is a no-go. Ever since it even came out, it was a no-go for me, because he's just not playing enough outfield for a team that doesn't necessarily need a DH, who absolutely would kill it in Citizens Bank Park. But no, sell.
Yeah, I'm selling that one hard too. It's just not the right fit. I think the A's should trade Rooker. He's got a few years left of team control. He's not going to be part of the next great playoff team. The value is sky high. I mean, at the time that we're doing this, I mean, this is a 290 hitter, 369 on base, 574 slug, 169 OPS plus. That means he is worlds above the league average. I mean, this dude's been great. Yeah, if you need a DH, I'll just try to kick around some names for anyone of teams. Pirates, maybe? Kratz? Yeah. Like, could the Pirates be a fit? I would have said Mariners, but same division, always a little bit more complicated. I don't think it would necessarily deter them from doing a deal, but I definitely think the A's should trade away Rooker. Anyone else have team ideas?
Well, what position?
DH.
And that's it.
He can't really play the outfield much, which is kind of probably the thing that makes it tough, but he's just the bat.
That's the problematic part. So
he's played enough. I mean, not a ton. He's played, let's see, right now, about 25-ish. I'm doing quick math games in the outfield. But yeah, he's definitely not a playoff level outfield defender, which honestly is the same
Milwaukee.
thing. But
what about Boston?
Well, then you basically, I mean, they're paying a lot of money for a DH in Yoshida. I mean, I know he's not great, but he can't play the outfield either, Yoshida.
That's a good point.
I don't like it as much in Boston. I like him more in Milwaukee. Or what about St. Louis? St. Louis is always looking for some bats, and they're veteran guys. I mean, to me, if St. Louis adds that, you go, whoa, they might be a little right-handed heavy, but they can mix in their other lefties, switch them in the lineup, depending on who they're facing. But Goldie, and I know he's not having a great year, but Arenado's getting hot. You have Goldie, Arenado, and Rook in the same lineup. Woof.
They could do
no,
some
I
damage.
think that's a great idea. And you're relying on Goldschmidt and Arenado to smash lefties, and they're having bad years. So I think that's actually a really good
Rook
fit.
is actually hitting righties better than he is lefties. Crazy stat.
There you go. Wow. So
reverse splits.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I got for buy or sell. I appreciate you guys coming on and helping me out here during the trade deadline, and can't wait to see what else happens as we get closer and closer to that magic day.
Yeah, this was awesome. Mark, one more thing for you on our way out, because we won't have time to get to it on the show. Obviously, you watched every second of the Subway Series just now.
Of course.
What was your thoughts on what went down and how the Mets went with their lefty starters against the Yanks, and obviously stomped all over them, especially in last night's game with a huge dub? And they seem to always have Garrett Cole's number, which is like, I don't know, 1 out of 30 in terms of teams in baseball.
Yeah, it's bizarre how, like, the only team he really struggles against is the Mets. That's not normally how it goes for us. But the fact that they walked into Yankee Stadium and really just dominated from start to finish was fantastic. And I mean, Luis Severino was right. They really only have 2 hitters right now in that lineup that you need to focus on. And you saw the Mets gave up the home run to Juan Soto, and then they walked Aaron Judge pretty much every single time he stepped to the plate. And I think while the Yankees got exposed earlier on in the year with the Red Sox running all over them, I think the Mets might have exposed a little bit of a problem here too, where it's like, hey, just don't pitch to Aaron Judge and then hope that you can get J.D. Davis and Jahmai Jones out. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Yankees do. But both Mets and Yankees in different buying scenarios for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, quick one.
Hit me.
If you were to be a fan for the next 50 years, and I know you're a Mets fan, who is going to have the better run over the next 50 years? New York's Mets fans or New York Yankee fans?
It's going to be the New York Mets fans all the time. Uncle Steve at the helm. I mean, he's not going anywhere. He's got the money. I know that the history says it's very much in the Yankees' favor. But I've gone 28 years in this world where it's been all Yankees all the time. I'm hoping that the next 50 for me can at least be a little bit more Mets forward than it's been for the Yankees. So, I mean, you're asking like the most biased Mets fan in all of baseball. I'm always going to pick the Mets.
No, that's
Thanks
a good question,
for my World
though.
Series ring, too, by the way. Thanks for my World Series ring, too, by the way. So
You're welcome. You're welcome.
But that's a good question, Kratz, because law of averages, if you're a team that spends more, and it's not just on player payroll, but your team in general, like the Mets are going to spend more actual dollars on every single part of the franchise than the Yankees over at least the next 10-ish years, because Steve Cohen is fine on the financial side of things. The Yankees still need to pull profits for everybody in the family there. Cohen doesn't have to operate business that way. That matters. So just law of averages. I know if you're looking at the histories, it's different, but Marc, this was great, man. Appreciate the time. Everyone go check out Marc's channel on YouTube. We're going to post a clip, obviously, from what we did that he'll put up there. So, Marc, thanks, man. Enjoy the trade deadline.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. See you next time.
See you
soon. And we'll see everyone watching on Valley Sports TV right now. Back in 2 minutes. All right, we're staying here, YouTube fam, for 2 minutes. Just
Boom.
A little bit more. I just took some comments from our Garrett Crochet talk at the top of the show. Trey said, wouldn't that lower Crochet's trade value? Oh, hell yeah. His trade value has gone down significantly. Now he has to go to a team that is going to give him an extension. So it's nothing against him personally as a pitcher, but it rules out a ton of teams in the marketplace. I mean, you could even make a case for the Orioles. I mean, the Orioles are different now, but we don't really know what to expect yet from their ownership group. I know it's not going to be a hellhole like it was with John Angelos taking over for his late father, but I don't think they're necessarily going to look at him and be like, sure, let's give out a contract extension right now. Probably dumbs it down to only maybe 2 teams, Padres and maybe the Dodgers. But here's the other line I wanted to give you guys. So Gabba Goat in the chat said, Crochet saw what happened to Kyle Hurt, and that was the last straw. Dodgers are blowing out all their arms. May, Gonsolin, Buehler twice, Sheehan, the list goes on. And I think you, Kratz, have talked about how the Dodgers take care of their arms. So I don't know, just interesting debate there. I don't know if that's necessarily the way that he's looking at things, but it's interesting to bring up that they've definitely struggled with the arms. Arm health.
I mean, more than other organizations?
Yes.
They've broken. You think the Dodgers have, because
I'm not saying it's their fault. No, I'm not saying it's their fault. I think probably it has more to do with players that they target, like the profile of some of the pitchers that they have.
Okay. And how many of those dudes are young? How many of those dudes are young pitchers that are coming up? I mean, look at what the Rays have definitely hurt more arms than the Dodgers. I'm only going by how they handle rehab things because of my buddies who have gone from other organizations in the middle of rehabs and then gone to the Dodgers and how they handle it. And I think there's obviously rehab is not prehab. So I guess he is right that, guys are going there and blowing out, but guys are also going there and playing an extra month for the last 10 straight seasons too. So there's something to do with that.
That's a great point. And also, like some people are saying in the chat, they take on high-risk arms. That's part of the mix. They always will take on guys that are either on the mend, right? And that could be a bargain that they can get back to, a high level of performance. So interesting conversation. We're going to swing right back and do some locks. Todd Father, help us, save us, help us. Struggle City, last couple days. I'm cold as ice.
But you're over. I respect your game. You're over 500.
I know, but
I don't
do
care
a lot
if
of minus.
Kratzy is
I do a lot of
31
minus
and
bets.
40.
Yeah.
Even if he was up 10 grand, I couldn't trust it because his record's not there. That's what I don't like. I don't like it.
Yeah, but they're doing riskier bets than I am.
They're not
doing
risk.
plus money bets.
They're pick the games you think you could win. Don't
They're
go
risking
crazy.
biscuits.
It's disgusting.
All right, so fix this. What's happening?
You
tonight?
got to ride the hot hands.
Okay.
And listen, Luis Severino on the mound versus Chris Sale. Now listen, I love Chris Sale, and I think he's Cy Young worthy. But they're playing in New York, and the team is hot. I think the Mets money line today at even money. I'm going 300 to win 3. You got to ride that hot hand, and guess what? You ride that wave until the wave goes boo, 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 boo. All right? And then you figure something else out. Mets money line, $300.
I like that because you had Mets money line in your last bet.
Yes.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
Yep. Kratz?
I rode the hot hand. Juan Soto was hot, and I was the cooler. He went boom, 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 and went over 4. Womp, womp. I'm going Nerfy in the Angels Athletics game. Oakland versus the Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles. And that is coming to me at plus even money, plus 100.
Money.
Very nice. I'm going to do a little SGP. I'm just trying to find my rhythm again. I'll go Tampa Bay, Toronto, under 10 runs with a Taj Bradley, Chris Bassett matchup. Bassett maybe's last start before getting dealt if the Blue Jays are smart. And Taj Bradley, for me, has been the most entertaining pitcher to watch over the last few weeks. He is not getting talked about enough. He's been insane. He's pitching like a 1 right now. And I actually think he has number 1 stuff. Obviously, it's still all coming together for him. He's dealt with injuries, all that. But, he's been, I think, up this year for a couple months now since he came back from the IL. He's been money. 4.5 Ks. It was too steep for me. I think it was at like minus 160 in the BetMGM app. So I was like, let me get a little under paired with it to get myself down to 125 to win a hundo. So good luck, everyone. And a new little announcement that you can check out in the BetMGM app. They're introducing a new home run odds boost token. This promo enables players to increase their odds for player home run wagers. So you can log in to your account, receive a home run odds boost token, and to use that, you add a wager made up entirely of MLB home run wagers to your bet slip, and you can activate that token. Gambling problem or concern? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We're going to come back for a nice long segment to look at what's going on with some other trade rumors, answer some questions, and Kevin Kiermaier is calling it a career soon.
So is there something more that we could see from Skeens in the future? I don't know what more there could be, but...
Yes, he's 6'6", 235. He is wildly competitive. Fellas, I did the All-Star game, as I always do, from the one of the dugouts as a radio reporter. And I watched Paul Skeens walk up and down that dugout about 20 times. He could not sit still. Now, again, he's 22 years old and he's starting the All-Star game. Maybe that's the way any pitcher would be, but he didn't see anybody during the pacing back and forth because that's the zone he was getting into. And Erik, Cam, that zone that these pitchers get into, they are in a trance. They don't even know where they are because all they're thinking about is going out there and throwing 102 miles an hour with filthy secondary stuff. So I learned a little bit just watching him walk back and forth there. And yet after his inning, I interviewed him and he was completely composed. There is nothing not to like about this guy. And you're asking me, is there more there? I don't think there's any doubt. There's a lot more there for Paul Skeens, and that is really saying something. I think the Yankees are still better than the Mets, but imagine even asking that question 2 months ago. It is a legitimate question now. Fellas, I went to England with the Mets and the Phillies, and the way the Mets won that crazy Sunday game with the play at the plate, even you have never made that play, Erik, and you were a great defensive catcher. Yes, you don't tell me you made that play before.
I did. I was the last person to have an unassisted, 2 unassisted since then. It's so crazy. It actually came up on the telecast. But anyway, yes.
That is beautiful. All I know is I got a good load of the Mets in England, and I left thinking, boy, they're not very good right now, but they have enough to turn this around, and their offense has really started to click. Francisco Lindor, since moved to leadoff spot, looks really good again. Francisco Alvarez has changed their offense, even though he's in a bit of a slump these days. I think the Mets can make the playoffs.
Let's sizzle, baby. Hot corner, going to answer a few questions. Going to get to some more news from yesterday, like the Robbie Ray debut and Clayton Kershaw making his debut tonight. But first off, a little shout out to Kevin Kiermaier, because this is the end of the ride for him. His last season, he said, I'm at peace and I'm happy. And he said it might be a surprise to all you guys, rightfully so. But for me, I kind of knew this was going to be my last year. I just want to give credit to a guy that has been super entertaining for a long time, played most of his career in Tampa Bay. You know, that team doesn't always get the attention. He has been a freaking dude out in center field. I mean, he's been the, top 3 at least. Defensive outfielder for the past, 10, 15 years, however long he's been playing. 12 years, I think he's been in the league.
Without a doubt. Now, I was going to say that definite top 5 center fielder. A guy that it seemed like every other day you're seeing a top 10 play on there. Kratzy, I think you played with him, right, or no?
Did. Yep.
Yeah, so, I mean, you have more to talk about the person he is. Just from playing against him, it's like every time I hit the ball to center field, I'm like, oh, come on, what am I thinking? This guy would go get every ball. He was a stud, a good ambassador for the game, too, as well. Happy to call him, friend, and happy for him. If you're at peace, just like I was and a lot of other guys when they left, man, there's nothing better. He gets it, and, he's going to ride that wave home and, be a family man now.
You know when you know. And if he knows it's time to go, then got to go. And that can kind of get in the way of your last year. He probably would have liked to seen this last year go better. Hopefully, he can finish out the season here somewhere, maybe. But he can also, walk away, because a dude that plays as hard as he played and covers as much ground in the American League East, there's some big center fields there. You're not playing in the National League East where it can get a little smaller, or Cincinnati. He was roaming some ground out there, and he did it. To me, I think he's either number 2 or number 3 in center field. He kind of crossed paths the same time that Adam Jones did. All that stuff's baseball stuff. To me, the way I saw him as a teammate, the way I saw him as a leader for the Rays during that time, I didn't see from the other side. From the other side, I was like, this guy, he can play, he can get after it out there. The way he led that team, the way that he will have an effect on generations of players from the Rays because of how he was the leader in a clubhouse that was normally void of leaders, because they trade him, because they bring, a guy in a 1-year deal, can't have the same effect. He was there for a long time, had success, and when Longoria left, the way that he was able to take over and kind of lead that next group, his impact on your organization will be felt for a very, very long time.
Obviously the bat just hasn't been there this year, so the Blue Jays put him on waivers. No one claimed him. He's still there. But, yeah, maybe they buy down some money. He gets traded to a contender and can be at least a defensive replacement and play some games for somebody that's going to make the playoffs. But last year he was looked at as a bargain. 1 year, $9 million for, the best center fielder in baseball. He won his 4th Gold Glove, and he had a 741 OPS, which was his highest mark in many years, highest since 2017, I believe. And this year, the bat has just crashed down for now. It actually sucks because he said that no one was interested besides the Blue Jays, and he signed back for a year and $10.5 million. And so a lot of front offices go, see, our age projection said that he wasn't going to hit like that. And that stuff pisses me off. But anyway, cheers to KK. He's been awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's get to some other rumors, but two things I want to remind everyone about. Number one, next week, we are going to be covering big trades and breaking news on our YouTube channel if something happens in the morning or in the afternoon. And then regular FT is a trade deadline special at 3 o'clock Eastern time up until 6:30. The trade deadline goes until 6. News usually spills out a little bit afterward because they get those like late faxes in. Here's the deal. Take this. So we'll break it down for 3.5 hours. But if anything huge happens before that, we will cover it and do, a little breakout clip live on our YouTube channel. So go subscribe to that. Obviously, we'll post anything podcast wise as well afterward. But if you're watching for TV, Bally Sports app, the whole deal, 3 to 6:30 on Tuesday. So don't show up at 1 o'clock and think, what happened? FT got canceled?
Yeah.
Nah. We had that the other day where we did the show late for the All-Star pregame show, but we'll be there. Also, shout out to Baseballism hooking us up with shirts.
Joe Boo.
I got Joe Boo today. Here. There it is.
Say it with your chest, Joe Boo.
You want to read it?
It's very bad to steal Joe's Boo's rum. Very, very bad.
Don't steal his rum. Okay. I want to shout out. Well, let's do a long version of slap hands for like 5 minutes, and we can each throw something out there. But let's slap when we can, and then. Todd Father, you can actually start because he brought up a big season debut coming up tonight. Kirsch.
Oh yeah, I was like, I didn't know what you were talking about.
Yeah, Kirsch is back.
Yeah, I'm wondering how it's going to be, man. I want to see. My biggest thing I want to see. I'm actually happy he's coming back. He's another great player for the game. I hope he's 100% ready to rock. My interesting point here, though, I want to see how hard that fastball is. I want to see if he's got the zip. His best pitch is that cut slider piece that finishes right-handed batters on the back foot and lefties away. It's going to be exciting to see that arm lift up and that no leg lean kind of throw. Good for Dodgers, good for baseball, and I'm excited to see him back on the bump.
Yeah, me too. I was pumped, Kratz, to see Robbie Ray return yesterday.
Oh, his ball was zipping.
It was zipping, but it was such a Robbie Ray return. First 5 batters, you're like, okay, so he's not going to make it past the first inning. He had like 2 hit by pitches, couple walks, 2 wild pitches. It was getting crazy. Ends up going 5 no-hit innings and helped the Giants obviously sit the Dodgers offense down for half the game. And then they broke out late against the Dodgers bullpen. But yeah, Giants pick up a much needed win. This is what I'm talking about, though, Kratz. If Robbie Ray is going to come out there and do his 5 to 6 innings and 8 walks but no hits and no runs, that's going to help San Francisco a little bit. They can play the brand of ball that they're going to need to play to try and get back into this, because I don't think their front office is going to support them much with trades.
Nope, I don't think so either. Their trades are coming in the moves that they made in the offseason. With Robbie Ray coming back, first start, how many of these guys have we seen this year? Jordan Montgomery, Blake Snell, come out of the gate not being 100% ready. He looked exactly what you said. He looked 100% Robbie Ray. He looked 100 like he's going to walk a bunch of dudes, and then he'll dial it in for enough batters in a row that you're like, I see why you have a Cy Young. I see what's going on here.
That was a great trade. Mariners were dumping money in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
That was what that trade was about.
Fastball's got life, bro. That fastball
always.
had some life, dude.
You like that line? 2 hit batters, too.
Don't
5 innings, 1 earned run, 8 punchies against a good offense in the Dodgers. So welcome back, Robbie Ray. Also, Craig Breslow came out and talked about Alex Cora and about the Red Sox situation. We touched on the Cora signing a little bit yesterday, so good for them to keep him in Boston for the next at least 3 years. He's also the second highest paid manager per year to Craig Counsell.
It's very nice. He was, he's a big name. Big name. Anybody would take that guy.
Yeah, apparently they were cheering, big round of applause when Cora walked in the clubhouse after the news was
that's good.
basically official.
Now they got to start adding a little starter or bullpen piece nuggets for sure.
Yeah, Breslow said they want to add pitching, a starter or a reliever, and or a right-handed bat to make a playoff push.
Come on, baby. I like that.
There it is.
Listen, it
They
is
have
what
a
it
pulse,
is. At
Red
least he's talking about it.
They have a pulse.
Stop. Don't congratulate him for telling us nothing. This wasn't anything. This was the fifth. This was full throttle. Don't keep shame on me if I fool you once. Shame on you if I fool you twice. Like, let's just wait. Okay? They're still in full throttle. The Cubs are still in the fifth inning. Like, let's pump the brakes. Unless somebody says we want to prove to the fans that we're actually going to do something, then I'd be like, oh, now I'm going to listen. But when they're like, you know what we would like? We would like somebody who could pitch strikes for us and bat some balls at a really hard level. Great. Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, everyone says that.
Don't get your hopes up.
Good. I like some tough love from Kratz there. I will say most of the teams that we crushed in the offseason are not looking good.
No, we were right.
The offseason matters. That's why we do shows every day in the offseason. Anyway, tomorrow is Friday. It's Frazier Friday.
Okay.
I'll be back here. Hopefully we'll get some trades. Kenny Ballgame Rosenthal will join us. Billy Epler, former Mets general manager, former Angels general manager, is going to join us. We'll do some trade deadline conversations with him. We'll take a ton of your questions. Hopefully this was an enjoyable one today. This was for me. Todd Father said it. It flew.
And there were no trades, so wonder when there are trades.
Yeah,
what's gonna happen.
Exactly. The crochet news at the top was interesting. You guys were good on that. See you Friday.
See you.